Working to that. 10:59 going live. All right. 4. Here's a worksheet for everyone here. It's going to be part of our main presentation today. I'll get you some pens. There you go. Don't die, please. You got it. Roger's in here. Great. Hello.
Hi. Do you want to use those, Sam?
Oh, I don't think we necessarily need it. Totally fine. Hello. You met Rick? Huh? Worksheet. Worksheets for the gathering of community people. Yeah, I really don't. Basically, hey, you're the one who decided to come to a community meeting on Saturday, which I commend you for. Which we appreciate. I understand that. That's why we move around. Yeah. Huh? Understood.
Well, that was finally popular. Remember when Mom closed down this school?
All right.
Well,
here's, we're doing a couple of these things today.
And in 1980,
there you go. Thank you.
The state of Illinois passed a law to control the Chicago Public Schools finances because they weren't doing it. And there's a South Side alderman. He's a lawyer and he's on 2 committees, Fred and Williams. Okay. And they want to bring that law back.
If anyone else comes in, maybe just make sure they get one of each of these, please. Thank you so much. And a pen.
I mean, in fact, they hired more teachers.
Thank you, Anna.
More paying for that. I don't think the mayor has control over the school budget though. Direct control. Raise taxes.
Are you? Who's doing the update slide? Jesus. This one. Okay. So I'll just do these first 2. I'll turn it over to you. Okay. And then you can take over. Okay. All right. Cool. We are set for. You guys got your mics on? Video. For sure. Yep. Test. Test. Oh. Hey. Hello. Mike. The tables. Jesus. Did you hear me? On the. I heard something. Was it my loud booming voice? I think the tables foster community. People are talking to each other. They are talking to each other.
I like it. We make everyone sit at tables all the time.
Huh?
We should make everyone sit at tables all the time.
Good work.
Should we let these folks sit down and then we can get started?
Yeah. New attendees. Unless they were here for the sensory pride. They're 3 hours early, 4 hours early if that's true.
Well, seems like they're enjoying their stuff, which is not.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I guess.
What's that for?
It's a sensory pride.
Me too. I was fine where these tables were set up with like a bunch of sensory things.
Yeah.
We need our perfect
When you got people 3 to 5 cars going through red lights. I didn't have to stop in the middle of an intersection on Brightwood and Ashland because the woman was making a right turn. A right turn at red, and I had the green light going east. I had to stop, but she was making a legal right turn. But why don't they put cameras up? You know, like one of the police officers told me that 5 times. Ashland, he said it's the second most dangerous. You get 3 to 5 vehicles with red lights, including post office trucks, city trucks.
Yeah, the placement of those is really something to mention to the aldermen because they're the ones who have more control over where they go.
They have a Street intersection.
Test.
And they've got red lights on some that are like in maybe
That's I was looking for.
That's point. Well, thank you for raising it. Test. I don't know why this. Hello. Oh, there it is. Oh my God, we need a more accessible place. There's an elevator. There, but we have to go up to get the elevator. I don't like.
No, you don't. You can take the elevator.
Come on, the duck duck. Yeah, we got. Welcome. I'm sorry for air conditioning. Welcome to very, very local government. Hey, Mike.
Okay, the elevator's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cookie. It's good. How are you? Thank you for coming. You had a meeting to get to. You're good with the stairs, but just so you know, there's an elevator here. Yeah, you're holding tight, which is good.
It's free. It's free. You can make a donation, and it's going to be a little cooler on Friday. There's no rain except to watch. I will end here before I make
I thought you were coming to a big close. All right. Great. Are there any other community groups represented that would like to announce themselves, have any events coming up? Okay.
Then with that,
Well, and just as a reminder, the reason why we want community groups to attend and share their events is because the more we're out in the community and doing things and knowing our neighbors, that is one way to create safety. So thank you to the whole Heart of Lincoln Square for doing that event with the aldermen and others, and for all the community groups who do the work that they do in the community.
all right, now we will move over to our public comment. Just as a reminder, 2 minutes per speaker. Say your name for the record, and then we can give you a 2-minute timer, which is updated for the summertime. Anybody? All right.
You know what? Is there any public comment? One other community event that I wanted to share that I know that the North Center neighbors are doing a garden walk over in North Center tomorrow. And obviously a big community event that's happening tomorrow as well as the Pride Parade here. So that's exciting, and I hope lots of people get to show up for that. So.
And as everyone knows, that's a huge event. So I do want to extend our thanks to the Chicago Police Department and the officers who are with us tonight for basically all officers citywide have no days off during the Pride Parade. About 1 million people come to our neighborhood. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, neighborhood parades in the world, coming right through our neighborhood. So there's a lot that goes into it, from the police to the city, lots of community groups. So hope you enjoy it and do so safely.
Okay, moving right along, we're going to start with our update. Update on immigration and human rights and different ways to get involved. One thing that you can do is JCUA and the Asian American, Advancing Justice are doing a bunch of canvases where they're going around Uptown and Edgewater on the dates up there, and they're looking for people to come help. Do you want to say anything about that? Yeah, come on up.
Hey everybody, my name is Alyssa. I work at the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs around immigration. And yeah, we are hosting a series of Know Your Rights canvases hosted with the Asian Americans Advancing Justice, which is another community organizing group in Uptown. And it has been a lot of fun so far. We've met a lot of neighbors who said, this really sucks, I don't know what to do, and have been really, really glad to talk to us and learn concrete skills, learn how to pass along those skills to their neighbors to protect people from ICE raids. So if you are curious, you can go to bit.ly/uptown KYR, and I'm happy to take any questions. I'll be here after the meeting also. If you guys want to be involved, that'd be awesome, and I will probably be there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you for leading those. Another thing, just to stay involved and to figure out how you can make an impact and listen to hear what's going on in the city. The Andre Vasquez is an alder in the 19th district. He also is the chairperson of the Committee of Immigrant and Refugee Rights. They're having a meeting on July 1st at 10 o'clock in City Hall. So you can go there. I think they're going to be talking to a bunch of different city departments, hearing how those efforts are collaborative to make sure we're protecting the migrants who are in our community. I don't remember, I said July 1st at 10 o'clock. And then one other thing, we piggybacked off the Committee of Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and we put a lot of the resources on our website because we thought there's a lot of valuable resources there. So check out either one of our web pages for more information. And these links are, this link and I think the Uptown, the canvassing link are both live. So if you go on our website and click on them, you should take you right there as well.
We wrote about this in the newsletter that we sent earlier this week, but I just wanted to give a little bit of more information about some additional attacks on the safety of the LGBTQ community, especially here in Pride Month, which is June. The Trump administration announced earlier this month that specialized services for LGBTQ youth who call the 988 Suicide Prevention and Crisis Hotline will be eliminated starting mid next month. Since 2022, when those services have been available that have been provided by groups like the Trevor Project and others, about 1.3 million LGBTQ youth have accessed these services because they were experiencing suicidal ideation or having other mental health crises in their lives. We know that about 1 in 4 LGBTQ youth do think about or attempt suicide at some point during their younger years. It's just a really hard time. And to do so during Pride Month, and even in the official announcement, erase certain identities. The announcement that said that the funding and service would be eliminated referred only to LGB plus individuals. Erasing the T, erasing the Q is just cruel from my perspective. But we all wanted to put information out that A, we think this is wrong. B, we want to make sure that LGBTQ people and all people feel safe and are safe in our community in one of the most historic and storied LGBTQ neighborhoods in the city and in the country that we are proud to represent, and also that help will remain available for this population even after these cuts take place. The Trevor Project, which did answer the 988 hotline for these specialized services, their hotline will remain open. It's available 24/7. Their phone number, website for chat or text information is on this slide. We sent it out in our newsletter as well, and we can put it on our website as well. But want to just highlight that during Pride Month. And the next update is that earlier in June, Jenny and I had the opportunity to attend a really remarkable conference in New York City at NYU. It was sponsored by the NYU Policing Project and a similar project out of Georgetown University. It brought together about 400 people across the country who are working in the field of alternative response to public health and public safety issues and crises. They're working on, we saw examples from all over the country, from Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there is a co-equal branch of the public safety system there that responds to behavioral health crises. Our neighbors just to the north from Evanston recently launched a care program. They were available there. There were folks from Massachusetts, Oregon, all over the country who are setting up programs to have alternative responses to things that we've placed on police, like mental health crises, but where police are not necessarily trained for or the best response to help people in crisis. And so it was a really inspiring event for me. The picture that we've got on the right there with all the people, that was a convening of just the people from Chicago who were there. You had folks from the University of Chicago Health Lab, several foundations, the Pritzker Foundation, Pritzker-Punker Foundation, which are different, I learned on this trip, various other ones. The current care program here in Chicago, district counselors, folks from the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. So this left us with a lot of hope that we could plant the seeds for similar convenings here in Chicago and continue to advance the ball on alternative mental health and behavioral health crisis response here in the city. Did you want to mention anything else?
For those of you who go to our meetings, we talk about the care team quite a bit. We have a flyer actually at the front because the care team, the funding comes from ARPA dollars. So we need to make sure that the funding continues into next year and throughout, the rest of time here in Chicago. So really making sure we're advocating to see the care continued, and not only continued because we have it here in our district, but it's not across the city yet, and it's very limited in the hours that it serves the community. So really making sure that care is expanded citywide, nights and weekends, and can respond to the full range of calls that care responders really are trained and qualified to respond to.
All right, so who took our survey and our newsletter this week? Anybody? Any show of hands? Great, that means we get 12 new responses today. It is a 2-question survey, so please take a minute to scan that QR code. And it is about market enforcement efficiency plan. So Alternative response, as some of you know, we've been working on offloading parking violations from 911 CPD responsibility lists. So instead of CPD taking on parking violations, we have Department of Finance who are already doing a lot of the work, but just not through 911. So we are going to continue that effort. We did have a public hearing with the Public Safety Committee this week that was postponed actually from this Wednesday. So we're going to try to get that rescheduled for July. But in the hopes of launching a pilot program in which the Department of Finance takes on parking violation 911 calls instead of CPD. That will be a pilot program here in the 19th and the 8th district. Joanne.
Are you aware that 3 years ago, the city of New York had to deal with all
Yeah, that's a great thing to keep in mind. And we also have a pilot program running in the loop right now in which buses have cameras to cite illegally parked cars in bus lanes. So very similar, very tangential to what we're trying to do, very much taken into consideration. So thank you, Joanne. And with that, I hope you guys took this 2-question survey. I think we were at 40 responses the last time I looked, so hopefully we're at 50, because 50 is a great minimum to get for statistical analyses, if I do want to nerd out a little bit. So from our CPP Community Partnership Plan, every month we want to give updates as to how we are tracking against specific goals. As I mentioned last month, we've really been focusing on that parking efficiency plan and the public hearing, getting all of those materials and resources collected. So you won't see much movement, but again, you will see that we are making a lot of progress towards these specific plans on alternative response models. So we're really excited about this. We're really excited that the conference that Jenny and Sam went to is also related to alternative response. So we're getting a lot of movement, a lot of momentum. We're going to keep on doing that work. So now we're going to talk about workforce allocation study. Who here is not familiar with workforce allocation study and what we talk about? Great. Thank you for raising your hand. So we are currently engaged in a CPD workforce allocation study, meaning we're trying to assess where and when our resources are deployed from a CPD basis, trying to understand where they could be allocated best. I personally do not believe that we have too many. I personally believe that we have enough officers. They're just not allocated in the places that they should be. And we in the 19th district are constantly under the stress of not having enough police officers per beat car in every one of our 15 beats, while our 20th district neighbors do have enough beat officers. So there is a discrepancy. We want to understand why and how can we deploy the officers more effectively and also increase our civilianization rates, meaning having non-sworn officers take on administrative tasks within the department. New York City, as a comparison, has a civilianization rate of 25 or 30%, I believe. We have 5% civilians. So we are very much behind other U.S. major cities. The workforce allocation study is all an effort of trying to redistribute and allocate our officers more effectively.
When Marilio says we, it's not we, it's the city. They work with CPD to contract with a third party
evaluation
consultant named Matrix, who has done workforce allocation studies in many different cities across the country. So they have experience with this. So CPD is the one that chose Matrix. There are third-party funders who have been funding this whole collaboration. So really, it's a very, very large project, and we are just making sure. This is something that we've kind of talked about from the very beginning when we got into the position, making sure we have a clear understanding of how our officers are spending their time, how their work is allocated, what types of calls they're responding to, what types of calls other people should be responding to. So this is why it's important to us and why we're keeping you guys informed. But it's not we're doing this. Although Marilio probably could because he's really good at that stuff.
Thanks, Jenny. But good clarification. This is what the city is doing. So specifically in terms of the objectives, there's a number of objectives are on the books for the workforce allocation study. But number 5 is going to be why we're here today. Today's focus is to incorporate other assumptions based on the department's community policing strategy. So we're talking to you, the community, understand what you believe should be a priority, and how we should build this workforce allocation with your perspective in mind. As Jenny mentioned, it is taking into account a lot of different things, specifically a 911 calls for service analysis. So taking a look at why people are calling 911, and then using that as a basis to form this model, which is going to be a long-term sustainable model that is able to be updated year after year. The goal is to complete this by December, and we are currently at June, and this was signed in February. So I think we're tracking a little bit behind, but it's going to be a great thing to have come next year, so that we can set our priorities and our budget accordingly. As I mentioned, this started at the beginning of the year. We are currently in steps 3 and 4. As you can see there, staffing allocation model and development, and then patrol and non-patrol. So as I mentioned, this does take into consideration civilians and how they can be utilized within this resource allocation.
So part of the ordinance that created the drive and the push for the workforce allocation study was the transparency piece of it, and making sure that there was updates given to city council and given to community on a quarterly basis. The last update we were just given recently, it was from June 2nd. So just to quickly go back, and what they have been doing, they've been spending a lot of time doing these foundational interviews where they're kind of talking to CPD officers and trying to understand what the current state assessment looks like. So they did these interviews to create this current state assessment that I guess I haven't seen because it's not public yet, but it's like a 300-something page document. And right now, that's called the organizational profile is what they've created from it. And it goes over the current staffing levels, it goes over organizational structure, the service environments, and existing staffing allocation strategies that are being used. Right now, Matrix wants to make sure they get it right, so they're going back and forth with CPD to make sure that everything that their understandings are consistent with CPD's understandings. And that report is anticipated to be released in the third quarter of this year. And obviously, as soon as we get that, we will let you guys know about that. There was something else I wanted to say about that. Oh, I'm also hoping that they release like an executive summary so that we don't all have to read the 300 and something page report, because I think it's good information, and I think that this stuff is really important for us to understand how these are being allocated, so we can make sure that we are using our resources to the best of their ability and to the highest utilization rate possible. The other thing that they're working on now is they're working on drafting this interim framework report, and that report will include kind of the assumptions that they're using about workload. So how much work is expected for different roles or units. It's also going to give information on unit-specific staffing strategies. So we know that staffing is going to be different depending on patrol officers, detectives, administrative. There's all different types of staffing strategies that need to be considered. And then what are the performance targets? So, are we hoping to get better response times? Are we hoping to increase our case closure rates? One of the things we're going to be talking about today is community policing, and what do we want community policing to look like in our neighborhood. So this interim framework report is going to kind of share with community what they're going to be using to create their final report and recommendations. The website, they have the slide two up. That's the website that gives the information on the workforce allocation study. There's also a place to ask questions. So if you have further questions about this, you can ask us, and we're always happy to do our best to answer it. But you can also click on the image. I'm having trouble with words today, I think. And take you to be able to ask a question. Any questions about workforce allocation study before we get into the community policing? Speak up. Chief. I agree. I'm frustrated about transparency, but I do think that they are right now working to create this report. They don't want to put out, as far as this report around, where we are now, they want to make sure it's all correct. They don't want to put out information that's inaccurate. So I do understand wanting to go back and check it with CPD. Now, if we don't get that released eventually, I will be concerned as well. I do have frustrations that it's moving slow. I do have frustrations that we're not getting as much access as we would like. But I think that this also, we have to understand that this takes time and keep pushing for the things that we want to be seeing.
Yeah. So. So I had a conversation with the mayor's office, specifically about the community engagement report and the workforce, the 911 calls for service. They told me that they are waiting for the community engagement report to conclude to also give a holistic update that will inform the workforce allocation study, which includes both the community engagement report and the 911 calls for service analysis that was completed, I believe, in 2023, 2024. So it is what, like Mike is saying, that they're trying to conclude all of these different initiatives and then give one holistic update.
And actually, we're about to report on some reports that they did just release. We have a one-pager about it that I think we will pass out to you guys. It's the colorful page. We are going to jump into that right now. This is kind of the meat of the meeting. We're going to give a little bit overview of the community engaged policing efforts that have been going on. And then really what we want to do is hear from you guys and get your feedback so that we can report it back and make sure that your thoughts are part of the next set of reports about community engaged policing. So just again, to couch this in the larger workforce allocation study, we saw that slide that had like seven different, as Malia said, this is one piece of the goal to really clearly define what community policing means and what it looks like in Chicago. Superintendent Snelling realized that this was an issue that we don't really have a unified definition across Chicago of what it means to do community policing. Everyone has a different idea and a different definition. And so he really wants to create a cohesive vision and philosophy for community policing and make sure it doesn't rely on just one department, but really make sure that all Chicago police officers are community police officers. This is a goal he has, but it's also a goal of many other people. It's in the consent decree. Our body, the CCPSA, has also been calling for this type of work. And then he created with the Chicago Police Department a strategic plan for the entire department, and this is one of the goals from there too. So this is something that is really part of a unified strategy to understand what community wants for public safety and policing. just a little bit about it. This is the second group of meetings that have been going on about community policing. There was the first group of meetings we were talking to people about. Some people in this room or in the 19th district may have attended. In the winter time, there was different community sessions held that engaged 750 community members. There was 29 sessions being held, and they were asking questions about what community wanted for public safety and community policing. They're using those community sessions. They heard what people said, and they have more questions. So this is why they're doing the second round. Like, now that we heard this from you guys, these are the questions we have, and I'm going to share in just a moment what they shared. It's also on your piece of paper. In addition to talking to community about community policing, they also talked to 142 different CPD members, all the way from sworn officers to civilian members. They talked to different people at all different ranks of the department. And finally, they and some national leading experts to put together a report on what it looks like and how other cities are doing community policing well, so that we can learn from them, and make sure that we're using their feedback and insights to make sure our plan is the best it can be. An overview of what they learned from that. So they said they found that, like, what is the work of community policing? It's including the entire department in the said at the beginning, it's not just one office that's community policing, but every officer should be a community policing officer. And how do you do that? You build relationships. All officers need to be more engaged in the community. I always say, like, I would love it if I passed the officer, if they smiled or waved, like just a little bit more interaction, like that people are looking for. Do that is by maintaining the same geographical presence. So right now we know that there's a lot of movement about where beat officers are patrolling, and so one of the goals of the workforce allocation study, and that coincides really nicely with community policing, is making sure that we maintain this consistency of beat, as well as the consistency of who your supervisor is. If your supervisor is changing every day, that's really hard to know what your expectations are and to continue to do your job to those expectations. Community policing also involves solving problems in communities. Working with community members to hear what's going on and to know what resources are available in the community, to be able to offer those resources to make sure that we're helping to solve community safety issues. And then also not just being a one-way loop, a one-way form of communication, but really being a loop. Like, if we're giving feedback to CPD, we want to hear what CPD's response is, and same thing. There needs to be a continuous loop, is what community was saying they want to see. How should this be done? It should be police need to be responding to have the right response at the right time. So one of the things that a lot of community members say is that sometimes for small issues, all of a sudden a ton of officers show up, and then other times when there's a really big incident, they can't get anyone to show up. So one important thing that they want to see across the city is, making sure that we're getting the right response at the right time. We also talk about things like caravan, right? If it doesn't need to have a police officer response, what other types of responses? Could it be the Department of Finance issuing tickets? Could it be a mental health crisis worker responding to those types of calls? We want to ensure police are visible and approachable. So, one of the things that our district strategic plan talks about is having police officers being out of their cars, walking beats, riding bikes, making those types of interactions that I was saying, smiling, waving to community members. Also being more proactive in nature instead of only being reactive, responding to the 911 calls constantly. So we want to see lots of that and more of being able to do that problem solving so that we don't have to lead to 911 calls. And making sure we're really being thoughtful about using the resources in the district and the city. We know that this, in the 19th district especially, is such a resource-rich community. Let's really make sure that officers know about those resources and are able to tap into them to help people. We know we need buy-in from down in CPD. There needs to be specific policy and procedures that are written in to make sure that this is successful. Important, we need to invest in officers' wellness and training resources. And then there needs to be good management to make sure that these things are being, that these goals are being followed through on. Questions?
Make sense?
Question. So I think, like, I go back to this example because I think it's an easy example. Here, I guess I'll just say, hearing about a problem and a consistent problem. Like, there was a problem, and maybe Sergeant Angela can talk about it a little bit too. But there was a problem at one CAPS meeting that someone brought up about Uber drivers cutting through this one alley, you know, and people being worried that, like, it just wasn't a safe way. It was impeding neighbors. It could have, you know, they felt like the Uber drivers were going quickly through that alley. So instead, you know, waiting for something to happen, being proactive, talking to the talking to your beat officer or whatever, so that you can problem solve and figure out what can CPD do, what can, you know, can the alderman put a stop sign, can we, you know, how can we work together as a community to really solve this problem? Does that answer the question? Do you have anything?
I mean, pretty much that. You know, that's kind of the goal. This is trying to solve guys got responding. Stop this like that. But it also brings the community in part of solve that problem. No, it's there's a found a story that I got amazing I ever saw. An amazing episode. His name was 1431 Yeah, field training officer. Everybody had to go to 4 or 5 different Christmas dinners because the great water all over and a play. People going back 3 generations. You know, he was amazing. You know, if something happened, he knew exactly who's probably where to go and then talk to the family about what's going on. Probably the best beat officer I've ever seen now. So that to me is the prototypical community police officer. You have the time, the ability to develop a relationship with people who like that, work in that same beat for that many. You know, that's kind of like the goal, right? But we have to, number one, have the time, be able to, you know, have those interactions instead of running a job to job. You have to be assigned to that same car over and over again. So now you're running an interaction. The same people running into an interaction, the same people on your, you know, so there's a couple different, you know, pieces of the recipe that got to come together to make it effective.
Thank you, Sergeant Angela, for sharing that. And I think that example of the officer who is working the same beat over and over again, knows that neighborhood, knows the businesses, knows the residents, doesn't have to be spending their time responding to calls for service to 911 every minute of the entire shift. It's sort of the vision that the workforce allocation study is putting forward. It's part of the CPD consent decree as well, that officers are assigned to a consistent beat so that they can really, really get to know that granular part of the neighborhood, that they have consistent leadership and supervision so that they can have good professional development and course correction if that's necessary. And a lot of the goal is getting officers off the radio so that they're not only responding to 911 calls from the start to the end of their watch, and instead have some time, like 30% of their time or 20% of their time, to think through a conversation they had about a problem that they were presented with earlier, and go talk to the business where that is taking place, or the residents where that's taking place, or try to understand what other community resources could be contacted to help solve that problem. Yeah, Mike. There's a question over here. Yep.
So I want to draw a parallel with the Halstead SSA security. There's no way CPD can achieve that density, but every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, we have 6 officers out on Halstead from 10 p.m. until 3 or 5 a.m. And they get to know the business owners. They know the bouncer at the door of the bars. They know where the trouble spots are. They're out there every weekend, 3 nights a week. They're also serving as ambassadors. Someone needs directions. Someone looks like they're puking in a garbage can. They ask if they need medical help, things like that. And again, you can't put that many officers in that small a space, but that's an example of what seems to work well.
Another, where we did have entertainment teams, like in the, like in the 18th district, and like state and division over there. These guys and gals were over there. They worked at that research thing every night. They knew every bounce from the restaurant manager, everybody, which they could tell, or friend rate, friend house, never needed. They knew that community run. Guys and gals that lived in the buildings run. They knew that. So that type of saturation and ability, right, to engage with people, on a normal basis, not just responding to emergencies.
Yep.
Like maybe.
And I think that's one of the reasons we're really excited about this, workforce allocation study, because it's going to institutionalize a lot of the things that we're talking about today, and that also just makes sense and are common sense. And it just feels like we've gotten away from what used to work and be the right approach, and now we're going to actually formalize it in this study, and then it's coming from the superintendent, which is another encouraging fact.
Would you give me 1 minute? This is encouraging. I know I've probably heard it before, but versus.
So the live team can pick it up.
For the recording.
Hey, come on, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
It's for the recording. Oh, for my recording too. Hello. So no. Things are going well, and these guys and others have decreased. I lost my stats here. Homicides are down dramatically. Shootings are down from 529 in 24. I'll take that back. From 616 to 529 compared to 24. Violent crimes overall are down 23% this year to date. And motor vehicle thefts, which would go crazy in 23 and 24, are now down 28%. So we're going pretty well, and if that keeps going. Matter of fact, somebody mentioned on Wednesday that we are per capita now beating New York and LA. It's hard to believe, but it was said publicly. That didn't get recorded.
Good.
Thanks, Mike. And those are really encouraging numbers. We do hope that it continues. It's worth noting also it's part of a nationwide trend, and there's a lot. It's very hard to suss out what the factors are that are creating a far lower decrease in crime, because it is something that cities across the country are experiencing. But we're blessed that we are also experiencing it here in Chicago, and want to understand what lessons we can take from this decrease that we're experiencing now, so we can apply it to the future.
Okay, so that was a good discussion. Thank you all. So based on the first round of community engagement, CPD came up with this idea of what they want, of what they're going to be doing going forward. They're thinking about heart set, mindset, and skill set. Heart set is, are we part of the communities we serve? So talking about really what we were just talking about right there. Mindset, the word spell respect. They wanted to see officers being reliable, acting with empathy, focusing on service, professionalism, empowerment, communication, and making sure they have the time to do the things that they need to be doing. I feel like I could go into each of those words, but I want to get into the conversation. So I think you guys understand what they mean and how it could be used. And then, skill set is obviously just making sure that the officers have the training and the ability to go ahead and build these relationships in community and do community policing in a really effective, meaningful way.
So with that background, that's a set of a summary of reports that CPD has already commissioned for part of this community engagement process. And now we're going to take the conversation to you all at the tables with the handouts we gave you and other questions that we have to go over. So what we want is to get some feedback from our community, which is you. Thank you for showing up on a beautiful Saturday morning to this meeting, to share your feedback on what community-focused policing should look like. And this will help shape CPD's full strategy for how officers should spend their time, particularly when they're not responding to 911 calls. If our goal is to have officers spend 20, 30% of their time off radio, where they're not simply going from 911 call to call to call, how should they be spending their time and what do we value? And those lessons will inform the workforce allocation study. Just to be clear, this is not shaping what the workforce allocation study itself is studying. Those questions have already been defined by a scope of work that was negotiated with CPD and defined by CPD. For what it's worth, district councils, and particularly Jenny and others, pushed to have district councils and not just us, but councils across the city be part of shaping what the workforce allocation study would cover. Frankly, that was rejected. But we do want to play the role that we can in what we're being asked to do, which is why we are joining with district councils across the city and asking some of these same questions of each of the communities across the city for what community-focused policing should look like. And we will continue to push for more of a district council role in how the workforce allocation study is conducted and what we do with the results. Do you want to show the timeline? Okay. So the timeline for these engagement sessions, they're happening this month. We're doing it for our meeting. Other district councils are doing it for their meeting this month. The deadline for the online survey, that was yesterday. So I'm not going to even... A week from now, there will be the deadline for submission of notes from the engagement session. So the notes that we take today will be submitted to the folks who are collecting them all. And in the fall, CPD will be synthesizing the feedback.
All right, I think now we are going to move into the conversation piece of it. And just in order to have the conversation, I think we're going to do two tables. I thought it was very nice to see everyone kind of talking at the beginning at their table. So we're going to, we'll kind of split up amongst these two tables. Could this middle table, gooch, maybe like 3 of you go to this side and 2 of you go to this side. And then we'll just lead the discussion at the tables, yeah? Or unless you would differently play it.
No, I was going to say, for those on the live stream, if there's anybody on, we're going to go ahead and end that. And then we're going to focus on our community conversation so that we can spend a little bit more dedicated time with you all. Yes, Sergeant.
Clarify something real quick that I said earlier.
Yeah.
It's not like the engagements already happening across the city. What I think we're talking about is just the ability to have more of those engagements. So that our officers are just staying in the cars every day and just creating an opportunity for them to have more of that positive engagement. Less time chasing the radio.
Yeah. And a lot of what this conversation is designed to shape is, what do community members want to see their officers doing? And this feedback will help inform how officers are trained and what the goals are for CPD when they are off radio. All right, great. We'll come to you.